What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And last week I did this same style of video with the modern format, kind of going over what exactly it entails, some good resources and stuff to get you started, either playing the format right away, things to kind of look out for, and just in general ways to kind of learn and get into the format as soon as possible and hopefully have some pretty early success and things like that, while also kind of being entertained as well, in the learning process. So today we're going to take a look at Pioneer, the newest, non-rotating format that we got, I believe in like 2019, before COVID really, was really even a thing, and then COVID kind of, I think, destroyed any push that the Pioneer format had early on, but is still nonetheless, I'd say, a pretty popular format given some of the unfortunate downsides that I believe it has at the current moment. But of course, we'll get into that and other things. Of course, before I get too deep into the video, if you're interested in seeing videos like this, you want to see Pioneer, modern content, all that fun stuff, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. We're almost at 300 subs. That is like an insane mark because I didn't even think we were going to hit 250, or at least I was going to be close. In this last few months, y'all been killing it, and I really cannot thank you all enough because it's one of those few things that, just keeps me going and keeps making content and keeps kind of like pushing and expanding on what I do for the channel. So if you want to see more content, please subscribe, ring notification bell, all that great stuff. Join the Discord server. The link is in the description down below, along with links to this article about Pioneer and any of the other tips and helpful things that I kind of go over in this video. So the big question, if you're new to playing Magic or just new to playing something other than Standard, what the heck is Pioneer? Pioneer is another 60 card variant, constructed variant, where you get to play with sets from Return to Ravnica all the way to Wilds of Eldraine. All the sets that were legal in Standard and released for Standard specifically is legal in Pioneer. There are no sets that were printed directly to Pioneer that skipped Modern, or that skipped Standard, excuse me. We have that in Modern, where there's like Modern Horizons, there's the Lord of the Rings set, and so on. With future sets also coming up as well, are going to go directly to Modern. So they will skip Pioneer and they will skip Standard. And at the current moment, there are, I believe, no plans for a straight to Pioneer set. So a pretty easy list to follow. You start at Return to Ravnica, and then you go all the way up to the current Standard set that has been released. And that is a card pool that you get to work with. You construct a 60 card deck, up to 15 cards in your sideboard, and then play the game as normal. There is a ban list, and I will go over some of the ban cards that are in the format because I think it's pretty important to go over those. I don't know if I necessarily went over it in the Modern video, but essentially Pioneer, the pros of playing this format is that it is a non-rotating format, and it is now the closest non-rotating format to Standard. So if you have a Standard deck that you like playing that maybe rotates out or isn't necessarily like the best in the Standard format currently, you can then kind of port it over to Pioneer, take a look at the card pool and things like that, and upgrade it to where you can possibly play in another format and kind of breathe some new life, or at least kind of give you a change of pace from playing something like Standard, which I've heard has been in a lot better of a place than it was previously. But nonetheless, getting into other formats is a lot of fun. And if you are like a Standard player, Pioneer is going to be a little bit easier to get into than, say, Modern, because you essentially had to pick up less format staples for Pioneer than you would in Modern. And of course, if it kind of snowballs where you get stuff for Pioneer, you get like the Shocklands, you're getting like Thoughtseizes and things like that, or you get like Nykthos, so on. You kind of start to slowly build where you just need to acquire a little bit more and you can play Modern. So it kind of is like a nice little stepping stone to where if like you eventually want to play Modern, you have more of the cards so that you're not having to spend, thousands of dollars on a bunch of format staples so you can play multiple decks. Pioneer, you can spend like about $1,000 and get multiple playable Pioneer decks that are also then going to bridge more into the Modern format as well, if that is something that interests you. So really cool. The format is a lot of fun. all things considered, of course, we'll go over exactly what like the metagame looks like in the format, where you can find different deck lists, budget options if you so choose to, just to kind of get your feet wet in the format, different ways to play the format, and of course, going over the ban list as well, which is where we'll start kind of our journey, I guess, just so you know kind of what's legal and what you're looking for in terms of finding out if cards are legal, illegal, and so on. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at the ban list for the Pioneer format. So here we have the list of banned cards for the Pioneer format. It looks like it's a lot, but really a lot of them are super simple. We have cards like Balustrade Spy, uh, Bloodstained Mire, and all the other fetch lands that were printed in Khans of Tarkir. You have Expressive Iteration, Felidar Guardian, Field of the Dead, Inverter of Truth, Kethis the Hidden Hand, Leyline of Abundance, Lurrus of the Dream Den, Nexus of Fate, Oko, Once Upon a Time, Polluted Delta, Smuggler's Copter, Teferi Time Raveler, Undercity Informant, which is kind of like the same thing as like Balustrade Spy in a way, except that you have to pay mana and sacrifice it, and it ends up being the same cost as the Balustrade Spy. You have Underworld Breach, you have Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, Veil of Summer, Walking Ballista, Wilderness Reclamation, Windswept Heath, Winota, Joiner of Forces, and Wooded Foothills. So I will obviously have this linked. It actually gives you the ban list for all of the formats that have a ban list or restrictions and whatnot. So if that is, if another format interests you, you can follow this link or keep this bookmarked or whatnot, so you can actually see what cards are here. And of course, you can look up these cards. There's actually an app that I have on my phone that I'll actually check here in a minute. I believe it's like MTG something or other. Super professional MTG Trades, which does a very good job at like updating cards that are released in different sets, giving you all the different printings of certain cards, prices, and a very good visual of what the card actually looks like, before you end up buying it or whatnot. Or if you find it easier, it has like the Oracle text as well. So if you end up looking up older cards, they will, if you just look at the text part of it, it'll actually have the updated text of like what a current card would say on it, which is really neat. So your Pioneer deck cannot contain any of these cards, or else you will swiftly get kicked out of a tournament. And I know they always put fun cards on the ban list. I'm looking at Smuggler's Copter here. It ain't sexy, but it is definitely really cool. Once Upon a Time, Oko, all that fun stuff. But, the format in itself, hopefully we'll go over some more changes, just like I hope the modern format goes over those changes. But with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the current metagame, where exactly you can find like these deck lists and some budget options as well. So this would be a surprise to nobody that maybe watches my channel or has watched my channel, but I use MTG Goldfish a lot for all my videos, almost exclusively for my videos. There's some decks that I find that I either, if I find them like on Moxfield or something like that, or on Stream Decker for, any streamers and stuff. But I usually try to port them then to Goldfish just because it's nice and easy to like just look at pictures and get kind of like a rundown of basic cards, and then you also get like metagame share and tabletop pricing along with Moto pricing too if you're like an online player. But this is what the Pioneer metagame looks like. Is it's a pretty accurate descriptor, just because there is a lot of events that do get posted to it. Obviously, a little like 6-person FNM or whatever, you're probably not going to find the results for that here, but you do get some of the NRG series, which is a pretty big event, the Apex Gaming, which is pretty, a pretty big tournament scene slash like tournament arc, I guess, that happens in around the Southern Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, that kind of like just that area of like those few states. It's a pretty big event, a lot of coverage for it. Those get posted. Obviously, the Star City Games and a lot of the overseas meta games as well. Kind of like those tournament results get posted, and it compiles up the percentage of like the meta game. You have this handy tool here where you can show deck lists from like the last year, the last 3 months, the last month, 2 weeks, and a week. Depending on how much you want to like narrow down, if you want to see sustained success, you want to see what's performing well right now, so on. And of course, there's just a ton of different decks, and I'm actually surprised because for the longest time it was kind of mid-range, ramp, and sacrifice over the top decks, but now Izzet Phoenix is kind of making a comeback, and I mean it was like one of like the bottom like towards like the bottom 10 decks that being played. But now seeing a number 1 is pretty cool because I have a soft spot for this deck. But you see like their metagame share, their price on tabletop, and if you go and click onto any of these, which I will here in a second, you will kind of get a breakdown of like the prices of cards and ways that you can buy them and so on and so forth. If for whatever reason you don't want to spend $350, $600, $400, $200, whatever, there is a section for budget decks towards the bottom. You have a lot of them like by Saffron Olive and stuff, some by other people in like the community as well. Some of these decks are pretty sweet. Like they're fun to play. Like Cycling Gifts a fun deck, Colossus Surprise, even like the budget Boros Convoke deck, because then like you can just straight up build Boros Convoke for like another $100. But pretty reasonable. Like mono like Wizard Burn, mono red, and things like that are pretty cheap. Even zombies can be pretty cheap as well. So you definitely have some options of just getting into the format right away if you don't want to build a more expensive deck. I mean, you see a Boros Aggro and Azorius Spirits, which are, have a decent metagame share and actually have a decent amount of decks that have posted results, that you can play that are also pretty cheap comparatively to some of these other decks. So what you kind of look like, or what it looks like, you come here, you select your format, you're going to select Pioneer, and then you're going to have these here. You can view recent events, or you can just click on a deck list, and it'll give you the most recent event and like who the deck list is by who it is and things like that. You'll see here, like Picklock Prankster. There's 4 copies in the deck. It costs 80 cents. That doesn't mean each copy is 80 cents. It means that to get the amount of cards that you would need to build the deck, it would cost you 80 cents. So to get a playset, it would cost you 80 cents, which means about 20 cents a card. If you wanted 4 Arclight Phoenix, it's cost you $9.80 to get the playset. Demi-Lich, it'll cost you $4.74 for 2, so on and so forth. And it breaks it down card by card, how much you would need to pay to get the amount of the cards that you want, including the sideboard as well. You can get it from Card Kingdom, which is usually the sponsor for MTG Goldfish. I have had some pretty good experiences with Card Kingdom. You can go to TCG Player as well, which is a place that you can go and buy cards from as well. You can get them from Card Hoarder or the rental service I use, Mana Traders, which I will kind of show off their website here in a second, is also another good place where you can just even like get a rental service and rent some of these decks, just so you can instead of being committed to necessarily one deck online, you can just kind of swap through and play whatever decks you want. Come over to the side, you can have a visual view of it. If you're like a streamer, you can have like a stream pop out of it. Download it so you can easily port the deck list over to Moto, and then copy, paste, and grab whatever cards you need to then kind of like update the deck and see how many you're missing or so on. Set as current, I'm assuming this is like for like an extension or whatever, export to arena, so on. Gives you like a card breakdown, a further detail of like how many copies of like a card are played in a certain deck. Like Picklock Prankster is a new card from like Wilds of Eldraine, 3.6 and 69% of decks. First, nice. Second, this kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, so there's obviously some decks that are probably playing 3 of this card, but the majority of them are playing 4. Just stuff like that. So, definitely I prefer MTG Goldfish for either pricing out decks, because their pricing is usually pretty spot on. In definitely keeping in mind that you have options from where you can buy cards from. TCG Player is a very popular website that you can buy cards from. I believe they partner with like eBay and stuff like that. I've even gotten some pretty good deals off of some premium cards like off of eBay, so I can only assume that getting cards like this, you could probably find some people selling full decks and so on through like Facebook groups. So definitely some of the things I would check out as well if you're just looking to kind of make it quick, easy, get the whole deck right away instead of just buying one card at a time, so on. Definitely looking at full deck trading or full deck buy sell trade pages, on top of just also finding like the websites like TCG Player, Card Kingdom, so on, that have the ability to allow you to buy just a whole deck and whatnot, and even get a pretty good price on it as well, and kind of customize conditions and things like that. So we've learned what the format is. We figured out what we can't play. We found different resources of where we can play, how much it's going to cost us, what we want to play, how the heck are we going to play. So obviously we went over the easy one. If we want to play in paper, you find a buy sell trade group, you go to TCG Player, go to Card Kingdom, so on. Maybe you go to your best friend and you just start buying pieces of the deck until you eventually assemble a whole 75 and you're ready to go. Of course, if as a side note, if that is like too expensive or you don't want to like necessarily like buy into a deck, and something that I recommend doing before you fully commit to buying a deck, proxy. Don't be afraid to sit down with some friends, proxy up some Pioneer decks, play a bunch of matches, and just figure out like, hey, I definitely want to learn more about playing this deck. And kind of go from there, because it is going to be something that'll carry you a long way in terms of getting better at the format. If you just like understand your deck and how it works in conjunction to the rest of the format, you will be better suited in the long run. So we know how to play in paper. We know kind of what to do, what our game plan is. But for the online players and stuff, maybe you don't get to play as much paper. Maybe you do want to like play paper, but you want to commit more to playing online before anything like that. There is definitely a very good place to go that I recommend the most as a rental service, just so you can get and play a variety of decks, kind of like you can do when you proxy, except you can get probably a little bit better like play testing and stuff like that from playing online than you do in paper. So let's go ahead and jump over to Mana Traders, which will be kind of the place that I suggest. So let's go ahead and jump over there. So here we have the different Mana Traders subscriptions that you can go. I have the gold one. I have been subscribed to Mana Traders for a while. This is like not sponsored at all by them. I wish it was, just because I can't recommend their service enough. I have a super easy time getting the cards that I want, and when you do have a hard time getting the cards that you want, they do a very good job of quickly obtaining more copies of the card to allow for more players to be able to adequately play those cards. So definitely a good service. Can't recommend it enough. Maybe one day be sponsored by it. Who knows? Boy can dream. But I find that if you want to play like Pioneer, stuff like that, you probably get away with just the premium account. Pretty cheap on the price, considering how much you pay for like the gold. And 400 tick limit is probably going to be enough. You can run up to 100 cards, so you can play, like Yorion is your companion, and play like a 20, an 80 card deck with a 15 card sideboard, things like that. Of course, you can play like 5 more cards, but that's neither here nor there. And as you kind of progress through their system, you end up getting more rewards. Your tick limit goes up, so you can borrow, essentially higher value like decks and stuff, and higher value cards. And then eventually your card limit will kind of go up, so you can rent like 2 decks at a time, and play with 2 decks and things like that. So definitely really neat. Cool system. I haven't any trouble with them. They've been pretty good to me, like at least as like a customer and stuff. On top of that too, you don't necessarily need to be a member, but your prizes are a lot better if you are like a member. You get to play in like their free tournament. They have like a qualifier league leaderboard. So most of the time you have to qualify for their tournament. But if you do very well in the qualifier, you go like 18-2, 19-1. Chances are it's going to be good enough for first place. If you're a subscriber, you win $400, and you just get an automatic invitation to their finale invitational at the end of the year. Of course, I know this is coming out in November, so unfortunately, you're going to have to play Legacy. Legacy this month to try and qualify last minute. But regardless, if you even do like reasonably well, like you get $50, and it's ends up being used towards like your rental service, like these little stars, the asterisks and whatnot. But if you do very well, like if you're in the top 10 of players in the Swish, you just win $100 straight up, and that can go towards buying decks in paper, or just buying some of your own cards on Moto, so you can keep a cheaper subscription service through Mana Traders, and end up getting to keep a cheaper rental service and things like that. So, really neat. Of course, like top eight too. You get to the Swiss. First place $3,000 if you're a subscriber, 300 if you're not a subscriber. Like, for you make top eight, and you would make as much as a non-subscriber who won. Essentially, like you would have to win as a non-subscriber to make as much money or make more money than someone who is a subscriber that made top eight. So just something to think about. They definitely reward you for being a person that is subscribed to their service, no matter like what tier. I believe, even if you're just like the base membership, like $15 to get $250 seems like a no-brainer investment to me. On top of that too, even if you're a non-subscriber, you have your own cards and whatever, it's still fun to play. You definitely get the tournament feeling in it. You get to play some high-level Magic. Like, there's some very good players that end up making the Swiss. And overall, like, I've had an enjoyable experience. I've been able to, cash, a little bit in some of these tournaments that I have gotten the opportunity to qualify for and play in. So it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a really good practice as well. Even if you're not like so sure of what you're playing or how you're playing or where you kind of stack up, these qualifier leagues, when they correspond to the right format, and even like the Swiss / like top eight, it's just very good practice. It's very good practice for a player. So we've went over where you can get paper cards. We've went over how you can play online. How the heck are we going to learn about the format? Because as much as fun as it is playing, we can't play Magic all the time. We have to have some way of kind of learning, or at least being entertained like while we're learning. So kind of like I did in the last video, and kind of like the trend I've been following, I will kind of give a few streamers / content creators that I like that do majorly like Pioneer stuff, or at least do the Pioneer thing, that I think are pretty good players, that are good players to learn from and just kind of like take things from, and also are pretty entertaining as well. So let's go ahead and jump over there and see what the heck I pull up. So the first of the two that I'm going to talk about, just because they do a lot of Pioneer streaming, and I implore you to follow them on Twitch and also subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Tandy, not so much. It seems like where you kind of get a lot of like videos that end up getting posted to YouTube, but he definitely does stream on Twitch with some regularity. So I implore you to kind of go over there, follow him on Twitch. Same with the other person that we'll talk about here in a second. But a very dedicated Pioneer player. Comes up with some pretty cool brews. Definitely innovates on some other like decks that aren't necessarily at the top of the metagame, but just a very good player in his own right. Played on the SCG circuit for a while. Ended up having quite a bit of success there, and even like some success at the Pro Tour level. So definitely a very skilled player, a very smart player. Definitely someone that you are able to learn from while also having a little bit of fun. He is a little bit of a showman as well on his stream. So just overall, I think a very good content creator and someone that's worth giving a watch. Even with some of these videos being like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, over up to 1 to 2 months. Of course, going farther as well. Just a very good streamer, or all around like very, very good content creator. So I would definitely suggest watching some of Tandy's videos as well if you want to just watch a little bit more like the fun side of Pioneer, as well as Doomwake, someone that I brought up in my other video, my previous like modern video and stuff. He definitely double dips. He plays both modern and Pioneer as well, kind of like what I do on my channel and stuff, where he comes up with some brews, from the community, and plays them, kind of see what has legs, and even to a point kind of like innovates on them, on top of just in general, like at times if you watch him on stream, which is another person that you should follow on Twitch as well, you will see him playing probably some more like popular options, some more meta choices, rather than going like off meta, kind of like how Tandy does it. So you kind of gets a good idea of what some of these top decks are trying to do, and possibly help you decide like, okay, well, maybe I want to play this deck, or okay, maybe I want to try to build into something or get into something that is going to kind of handle these decks, so I'm going to play them. So definitely two ends of the spectrum, but kind of all meet in the same place. You know, two very good players. They definitely dedicate a good amount of time to Pioneer. One of them most of their time to Pioneer, the other one kind of like 50-50, but definitely kind of like goes back and forth. And two players that you could learn a lot from in just Magic in general. Just, you know, two people that can admit to mistakes, but can also kind of make like the right play at the right time and kind of see things in a different way. So definitely if you're looking to kind of improve your game as a Magic player and you don't really get to play as much like in paper or even online, these are some good content creators to start with when kind of going deeper into kind of like your travels into the Pioneer format. So that's going to do it for our little beginner's guide to the Pioneer format. Definitely, if you watch the modern video, you're going to see a lot of similarities between it. I mean, there's only, I think, so many different variations you can do with kind of like a beginner's guide to something, especially when, you know, Pioneer and Modern, while they aren't necessarily super closely connected. I mean, Pioneer only goes back to like sets from like 2014, and Modern it goes back even farther, you know, has its own sets that kind of get printed directly to Modern. But nonetheless, Pioneer in itself is an interesting metagame and is filled with a lot of decks that have the, you know, it has its top decks. It has, you know, 3-4 decks that are always going to perform. They're always going to be great, and they're always going to put, you know, multiple copies into the top 8. You know, at least one, I would say. But looking at like multiple copies, depending on like the size of the field and everything, unless they like cannibalize each other, you know. But that's neither here nor there. So while the metagame is kind of condensed and honestly could probably use some changes, it's still a lot of fun. You can play a good variety of decks. You can use some of your old standard cards as well to kind of like transition to the Pioneer format. I think that it is pretty powerful, but I don't think we've quite reached the point where, you know, if as long as you have like a cohesive game plan, you kind of understand like where you're attacking the format and things like that. When brewing your deck, I think you can play a lot of different cards in the format that, you know, aren't necessarily like format staples, but I don't think they border on nearly unplayable. You know, it just kind of depends when the right time in the metagame is to kind of make those calls as well. So yeah, that's going to do it for me in this video. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Comment down below if you are new to Pioneer, what you want to see from the channel in terms of Pioneer content as well. I'm always looking to kind of expand on it as kind of like the channel grows at this kind of insane pace that we've set for ourselves. So if there's anything Pioneer related that you want to see, that you want to learn more about, please, you know, let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, and yeah, that's going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.